Welcome back to How We Love. I am Robin Lane. Today's guest has a passion that can only be described as fierce. It is a fierce love of a strong nation, people, and culture. That nation is Israel, a nation that is currently under the microscope and which some find controversial. But Mitch Mallett, an American with this fierce passion and extensive knowledge, will explain his love and admiration. So let's hear his story. Welcome, Mitch.
Well, thank you, Robin. That's quite an introduction. I almost didn't recognize myself.
It's well deserved. Why don't you start with the story? Because you and I don't know each other. I met you by reading the story that you had written about was it your grandfather, your great grandfather, correct?
Great grandparents, yes.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us that story?
Okay. Well, if it's okay, I'm going to let people know where it is, where they can find it,
Yes, please.
because it is published, and it's published at the JCA. It's actually J.ca, International Jewish News. Anyway, this story means a lot to me, and for years I was telling this story, and people say you need to write it down, and I wrote it down in December, and I posted it on a Facebook group that I run, which now has over 9,000 people, and then it got published on May 18th of
Okay,
this
let's
year.
get into the story, Mitch.
All right, if I stay, there'll be a Jew.
That's the title?
That's the title. Well, the whole title is If I Stay, There'll Be a Jew, a family story of survival, memory, and building Jewish life in America. For many American Jews, survival did not begin in the history books. It began with their own families. I am writing when I'm sharing this is my generational memory. It's been passed down and carried forward, and I'm very grateful to share this with you. This story did not come to me all at once. I first heard it in pieces as a very young child in the background of adult conversations. I remember telling my mother, I like to listen to grown-up talk. She thought it was cute. It was more interesting. That instinct goes back to when I was 3 and 4, 5 years old. At home, my bedroom shared a wall with the living room. When my parents had friends over, I would lie in bed listening to the conversations through the wall. When we visited family, I'd listen to my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation talk. I was quiet, but I was paying attention. Through those conversations, I learned things long before I fully understood them. I learned that some members of the family got out of Russia and some did not. Some were lost in the Holocaust, those that didn't leave. I learned that there was correspondence with family members who remained behind, letters exchanged until World War II, and I learned later that those who did not get out did not survive. The story itself was solidified when I was 22 years old, the final year of my great uncle's Lasker's life. And he was talking about his parents. He was relentless about telling me those stories. Fanatic, really. He wanted to make sure I had them. I profoundly am grateful that he did. Rabbi Nisan Meyerson was his father, born in 1856, the same year I was born, exactly 100 years later. That coincidence always stuck with me. I do not know what it means, but it made me feel close to me long before I understood why. As I grew older, I also heard another phrase from my grandfather's generation. They would look at me and say, referring to myself, he he has the spirit of our father in him. At that time, I did not fully understand what they meant. I was a child, but I understood that they were connecting me to someone larger than memory, someone whose courage, stubbornness, and Jewishness and a sense of responsibility still lived in the family. I do not know whether that was destiny, family expectation, or self fulfilling prophecy. What I do know is that it helped me shape who I became. Over time, that phrase gave me a sense of personal responsibility, not as a burden placed on me by others, but as something I felt within. If Rabbi Meyerson had such an impact on his generation, his Jewish community, then I felt responsibility to try in my own time and in my own way to carry that spirit forward.
Mitch, let me ask you something. So you grew up in a very strong, big family?
I had a brother,
Yeah,
so
but you
my
had
family wasn't big,
but
but
you have the extended family, right? Of your grandparents.
my grandparents was a big family. And my mother was one of two children. My uncle died of leukemia early. I remember him, and so it was just me. My father was an only child, so I have no first cousins. But come
Oh, wow.
but come bar mitzvah time, all of a sudden, all these second cousins appeared because all my mother's first cousins, which was the grandchildren of Nisa and Julia Meyerson, they were all their kids, which were more or less my age within a few years, were all getting bar mitzvah in North Jersey and in Long Island. It seemed like every couple months we're going to someone else's bar mitzvah. And I met these second cousins, and it was nice to meet them. You know, we've lost track of them, and my parents have since passed away. And I would like to find out who they are. And if
You
you,
mean now?
now, actually,
Well,
in in
let's go back. Let's go back. So that's quite a story that you told. But when did your involvement? When did you start Hebrew school, and when did your passion with Israel begin?
oh, I started Hebrew school in kindergarten. It was wonderful at the Lake Hiawatha Jewish Center, and then in second grade or third grade, my parents decided they were more comfortable in a Reform synagogue because Nisa Meyerson affiliated quickly with the Reform movement that was in New York. He was one of the early Reform congregations, actually. That makes me fourth generation Reform Jew. That's a rarity. Um, so I remember in third grade, the Hebrew school teacher, who was beloved by all her students, including me, came back from a trip to Israel, and she showed a slideshow and of her trip. And this was really my first memory of what Israel was. And she showed these pictures of a kibbutz and the banyas and the rivers and the beaches and Jerusalem. And I came home and I said, let's go to Israel.
What was it about that attracted you?
Well, her passion transferred to me. And,
Your
I don't,
teacher's passion.
her passion, and I don't remember all her words. All I remember is I have to go there. And as I got older, and it was youth group time, and the temple had a poster on the wall for the youth group, and I was a freshman, and it said Nifty in Israel. That's the National Federation of Temple Youth, the Reform Movement's youth group. And I came home and I said, hey, I want to go to Israel. Here's a trip. And my parents says, well, you have to be 16. You're 14. So 16 rolled around and they said, well, we didn't want to go. My father, who did serve in World War II, and he barely survived World War II a couple weeks after, but that's like a different story. He ended up working for the Defense Department as an industrial engineer, and so they were getting a lot of feedback because he had some clearance, so he understood more clearly than most how dangerous it was is for Israel and the threat back in 1972 when I wanted to go. And then a year later, I was on the track team.
I'm sorry, Mitch, you just broke up. What year was that?
1972, but the following year was my real opportunity to go.
What was
And
going on in 72? Was there a war there?
no, the Yom Kippur War was in 1973,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm actually getting to that because there was in our temple Beth in Parsippany, New Jersey, one of the men who was in his 40s was an Olympian runner for the U.S. Olympic team in 1952. It sounds like a long time ago, but back then it was only 20 years earlier. And and he ran the following year in the Maccabiah Games, where he gold medaled several times as a distance runner. And when he heard I was on the distance team, he asked my father if he could coach me on Sundays. And he turned me into quite a runner. And he was also on the U.S. Maccabiah committee.
So
And
he was an athlete and you were an athlete?
I was an athlete, and he coached me. Eventually, I ran a 4 minute and 32-second mile, which is fast. Wasn't record breaking, but it's fast for a high school kid. And it was because of his personal coaching. And they had Maccabiah games in 1973 on my birthday, April 29th. Um, so I ran in 5 races. I gold medaled in 4 of them. That means I came in first.
You
The
gold
rest,
medaled in four, you won 4 gold medals?
yeah, it was the New Jersey Maccabiah games,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened to be in my hometown.
That
And
must have been thrilling.
it was thrilling. And I won a silver, which was an open race that I didn't know I was going to run, but my coach, who was there, because he was the chair of the whole thing, he said, you got one more race in you. It's a half-mile race, and I'm in it, and I want to see if you can beat me. And so
And
there,
did you? And did you?
yeah, no, but let me tell the story because there was about 15 people in the race. A lot of these people were not serious runners, but some of them were. But he and I sprinted out ahead, and I was ahead going around the last corner because it was 2 laps around the track, and he passed me, and I said, I'm not going to let him pass me. And he hadn't run a race, so I was kicking with all my might. I tried to pass him, and the faster I went, the faster he went, and he just beat me by not even a second. And he said I haven't run a race like that in a long time, and I was there with my parents and some other members of the temple who were there to cheer me on. And he says, I can't believe I beat you. He goes, I I was going to really beat you, but I impressed him, and
So, but
but
you
I
didn't, but then
qualified.
hold on, Mitch, hold on. But then you didn't get to Israel until you were what, 22?
Yeah, but I have to tell you, I qualified for the Maccabiah team, for the 1973 Maccabiah team that was going to be that summer
In Israel?
in Israel, and all expenses paid. And my coach, which I can't, his name slipped my mind, but I'll remember it, I'm sure, after the podcast. He said to my parents in front of me, just give them $100 or so in cash. That's all you got to do is give them a little spending money. Everything else is covered. And my father wouldn't let me go. He goes, I understand the tension that's there, and I can't, in good consciousness, allow my son to be there. And And that's because in that fall, in Yom Kippur, there was the Yom Kippur War, and
Yeah.
my father knew it was going to happen,
But
and
you must have been heartbroken.
I was really heartbroken.
Yeah, I
And
can imagine. But anyhow, let's move on to, so when you finally did get to Israel, you were 22, and how did that happen?
um, well, that was my second trip.
Oh,
My first trip, well, it was I was going to go in in 77 on a Hebrew Union College trip. That would have given me like 20 some college credits. I convinced my new girlfriend to go with me. I later married her. And my parents heard I was going, and they said, if you're going to Israel, you can afford to pay your own tuition. They cut off all the funds to me. So I didn't quite have enough money. And I was very involved in the Reform Movement college program. And I took her to the airport, and I was there. The security was a little more lax. So at the terminal, I was in the terminal where they're giving the orientation. And the rabbi there who knows me says, "What do you mean you're not going? I don't have enough money." He goes, "You have your stuff here to go?" I said, "I don't." He wanted just to pull me on. And I didn't have a passport with me. That's what ended that. But I went the following year, and they wanted me to work at a Reform Movement camp at Camp Eisner in the Berkshires. So I decided, and my great uncle Oscar said, "Mitch, you take the weeks between your last final and when the camp begins, and you go, and it's just under 5 weeks, just under 6 weeks." And that's just what I did. And I got on that plane, and it was hectic. I had all these finals, and I had to get all my stuff home. And I woke up at like 3 in the morning to get to the airport, and this time I saved up my own money. And the guy next to me, it was like a 707. It was a chartered plane, three on each side. And I had a window seat. There was a much older couple. They were in their 40s sitting next to me. The wife was right next to me, and the husband leans over and goes, "So where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Israel." And I said it with pride. And he goes, "This is a direct flight. We're all going to Israel. Where are you going? Where are you going in Israel?" And I said, "All I know is I have a youth hostel pass, and I have a bus pass, an Aged bus pass. And I'm going to spend nearly 6 weeks there and get on a plane, go home." And
so
he goes, "You should
you
go."
went alone, and you went to Jerusalem, correct?
Yeah, he goes, "You should go to Jerusalem." He goes, "I only had $220 on me. My parents wouldn't give me a dime. They didn't think I'd get on that plane and that was a lot more money back then, with a little over $200. And the guy, I told the story to him. He goes, we're taking, oh, the word slips my mind. It's like a shared cab. And he goes, seven of us. He goes, "That cab ride is on me. We'll drop you off at the bus station." And we own a condo
I
because
want to
we
cut to this chase. I want to cut to what it was like for you when you got there, what you felt, how this love for Israel grew.
Oh my God, I got there, Robin, and the plane was delayed. So the youth hostel was closed that I had a reservation for, and it was after 10 o'clock at night. I ended up sleeping in the bus station with a bunch of other Americans about my age I ran into. And they asked me how long I'd been here, and I said about 20 minutes. And the plane arrived a couple hours earlier. And that next morning I was told that's where the old city is, and I wanted to go to the wall. And I went to the wall. I
Would you
found my
explain to our audience what the wall is?
That's the Western Wall, the where the retaining wall to the old temple. And this is going to really move you, because it really moved me. And I was at the wall, and before I left, Uncle Oscar for weeks just spent days just telling me everything he knew about his father. He wanted me to remember. And I kept coming up for weekends and dinners. And he came down, and he was 87 years old. And when I got to the wall, and I'm there at the wall for a few hours, and all of a sudden, I felt the presence. I'm going to break up. I felt the presence of Oscar like within me, and I just felt warm, and I felt the love from him. Excuse me. And anyway, I can't make a long story short about that trip, which we can dive into if you want. But just under 6 weeks later, I got on a plane and came home. My parents picked me up at the airport. And on the way home, we have some sad news to tell you. Oscar passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And it was the next day I had to be at the summer camp. But it was about a week into the summer camp. I called home. We didn't have cell phones. I said, "What time did Oscar pass away?" And then I figured out the 7-hour difference in time. That's He died when I felt him at the wall.
Oh my God. You're kidding me.
I'm not kidding you.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I have goosebumps.
yeah. So he
That's quite something. But I'm going to move from that very deeply moving story into something. So when you came back, what was the feeling that you had about Israel?
oh, I felt like I needed to go back. And
You felt almost as if you belonged there.
I did. I did. And I went back the following year. I graduated from Rutgers, and I almost married my future wife, but we didn't get married because I said I got to go to Israel for at least a year. And
Did you go for that long a period of time?
no, I went longer.
How long were you there?
I was there for 15 months,
Oh my goodness.
and
And what did you do there?
I bought a one-way ticket because if you buy a round trip ticket, then you had to use that ticket. Within a year, you lost the ticket. And I said, why bother risking losing the ticket and tying up that money?
And so what did you do there in that length of time?
Well, I got into the Woodges Institute. Are you familiar with the Woodges Institute?
No.
Well, everyone just Google World Union of Jewish Students Institute,
Tell us because
WUJS.
people are not going to do it. Go ahead.
All right. And it's a great program. I just heard it ended, but this week. But it was out of a ride. You had to be a university graduate. You had to be interviewed and accepted, which I was. And so I went and I decided to go a few weeks earlier because it takes place in Arad, which is a small development town of about 20,000 in the northern Negev, about 20 miles west of
So in
Messiah.
other words, you went to school there.
I did, but the first 5 weeks I was going to hang out with my friends who were about 2 years behind me at Rutgers because I had a lot of Jewish friends there. And there was about five of them that were in the 1 year program at Hebrew University.
Mitch, I can't go into all of those details because it's going to run out of time. What I want to
Okay.
understand is
Well,
the
anyway, I did
passion.
that.
Listen to me. What I want to understand is the passion that you developed for Israel, and why Israel has such a bad rap. How do you see that?
Oh, well, I've been back for a total of 5 times. I've been back to Israel, and I've been 20 years of my life there. I was a delegate to two World Zionist Congresses.
You spent 20 years of your life there.
20 months. 20
20
months.
months. Okay.
And people are just full of propaganda. And the propaganda which was like a massive propaganda launch on October 7th, which was definitely coordinated with what happened on October 7th, 23. And they have, there's such misinterpretations of the realities of what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Israel.
Could
Is
you be very specific about that?
Yeah, Israel's accused of genocide. There was no genocide. There was an attempted genocide. Whatever, whatever they're accusing Israel of, Hamas is guilty of. And there's no genocide, but they try to commit a genocide with Israel. There's um, there's 2 million Palestinian Israeli citizens who are extremely loyal to Israel. They say there's an apartheid.
I
There's
did
no
not know that there are 2 million Palestinians.
2 million Israeli Palestinians who
That's a
carry
lot.
Israeli passports. They're full citizens. They they get to go to the university systems if they qualify, and there's a lot of them. They become doctors, lawyers, professors. There's a Supreme Court judge. They are police officers. There, there's Knesset members in the Knesset, and they participate in the democracy. And a lot of them, Jews.
Just go on back to the bad rap that started with Hamas.
Well, it started with Islamic Jihad, and really it's coming out of Iran and Qatar. All this whole thing, this is a propaganda war. On October 8th, the day after this massacre, there were in dozens of college campuses, which turned into hundreds. But the day after, there was protests in the streets of New York, on college campuses across the world, with the same signs. They
So
had
clearly that was organized by
That was organized.
anti-Israel forces. That's pretty clear.
That's really clear.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's an
And
assault.
you have written something about Iran.
I
Do you
have.
want to talk about that? Because we're running out of time. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I've written 19 published articles since March.
Well, we can't listen to them as much as we'd
No,
like to, but
no,
can you
but in a few of the articles, this is
give
what
us
I say.
the gist of your educated opinion?
Okay, the gist of it is if you want peace in the Middle East, this war started against Iran, and it had a noble cause of regime change, and then that's been pulled back without getting into the political issues. That goal has been pulled back by America, not by Israel. There's no boots on the ground needed in Iran. We just need to equip the democratic movement, the democracy movement in Iran.
How strong is that movement in Iran?
There's millions of people in the streets almost daily right now. And then there's a couple million Kurds living in the northern part of Iran, and we need to equip them. We need to equip this the democracy movement, and we just need to give them air support, and they will create regime change. And
Well, what is holding it back? Because I know Donald Trump would very much like to see that.
I think he would like to see it, but now there's such an anti-war movement going on, and I think it's misguided. And I think the real understanding, if you Google me for the Times of Israel and read that article that got published just a few days ago, I go into detail in that. But
So give us, all right, so give us very slowly the address to Google.
to Google,
Yeah, for that to read the article on Iran.
you can actually go to the Times of Israel and the blog, and in the blog you can just do a search for my name. The title of the article is "Myths About Israel Debunked: Why Iran Democracy is the Path to Peace." If there's regime change, this nightmare of the last 47 years, if we don't have regime change, That's going to be another 50 years in our future. That 47 years, I graduated Rutgers in 79. That's my whole adult life. A few months ago, I turned 70. You know, it's time for a change. They they fund and they bankroll and they train Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. They got Israel surrounded. Israel's made peace with Jordan and Egypt for decades. There's a demilitarized border for decades with them. Israel's not bombing those countries because those countries made peace. Any country that makes peace of Israel, Israel embraces the peace and keeps the peace. So this misconception that Israel's warmongering, Israel's attacking Lebanon, the government of Lebanon is encouraging Israel to attack because Hezbollah is like a second government inside. The government of Lebanon is not equipped to get rid of this 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 terrorist organization that's almost a second government. It's and in Iran right now says if you want a ceasefire, Israel's got to stop attacking Hezbollah. Well, you know, to Netanyahu's credit, he shouldn't stop attacking Hezbollah. They really got to be broken down. I see videos.
I don't think there's too many people with any that are educated at all that would disagree with you on that. Listen, I'm really so sorry. We're going to have to stop because you're someone I could listen to talk for a very long time.
Well,
Thank you.
maybe we can do this again.
Well, let's see. But for the time being, thank you so much, Mitch Mallett. You've
All
been,
right, can I give a plug to my Facebook group?
yes, you certainly can.
All right. We are progressive, liberal, woke, and pro-Israel. I started it weeks after October 7th, and we're over 9,000 members. By the end of the month, we'll be at 10,000. And it's a very strong community.
More
And I
power
hope,
to you. Thank you so much, Mitch. I really appreciate your time.
thank you, Robin, for discovering me.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.